Season 4 has many changes to the Necro, but the most important one is and stays. Necromancer companions receive 100% of the player attributes. This is going to be the season of minions. Now, before you say, what about Overpower? It's ruined. Not only is the Banished Lord's Talisman going down from 120% to 60% bonus, the worst part is that the Dominate Glyph, which currently gives 400% overpower damage, and that gets multiplied up higher due to your sacrifices, this is now down to 14.9% instead of 40% it has currently. This will neuter overpowered damage into non-existence. Now, with Overpowered being destroyed and minions being strong, what is actually going to be the best level version? Bone Spear, Blight, or Sever? Let me show you the 1 to 50 level path. Then we're going down on gear and the armor changes that significantly influence how we're actually equipping. And lastly, on the Paragon board with a little outlook on a secret build that I haven't revealed yet, using the Wither node for damage beyond belief. But first, the skills. 2 points into Bone Splinters. We will only use this until level 18 and then phase it out already. Then it is Sever. Yes, Sever. Why? Because Sever straight up gets a cool damage boost for every minion you have summoned. So you're straight up going to have 7 minions in the beginning. That's a 14% damage boost. And as soon as you find the aspect for 2 and 2 more minions, which you then permanently going to have in your Codex of Powers, you're instantly going to have a 22% damage boost. Followed up by a point and hoot flash for the corpses, and then the Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion is simply free damage. We will want to put 1 point into Grim Harvest to already have our corpse use translate into essence gain, and then boost the damage of the warriors and the mage. That's what you're going to do. Warrior and mage damage. Plus 2 more points for Grim Harvest to really be always essent up that we can then spam Severs. And in order to spam the Severs the most efficient, we're actually going to take Cold Mages, which are not only going to do 2 essence, no, they actually do 3 essence per hit in Season 4. That together with Callan's Addict would truly have you fully essence out the whole time to spam Sever. Forward the Corpse Tendrils into Enhanced Corpse Tendrils and Vulnerable Corpse Tendrils. Then we could already improve our Shadow Shebang. But before we do this, rather Fueled by Death for that damage multiplier and Hoot Flash to essentially have the maximum amount of corpses being summoned at all times. Now our skill bar will already have the Sever, the Skeletons, the Corpse Explosions, and the Corpse Tendrils. And since we're going to get the Golem for free, and we don't have to invest any points in it, we also do have the Golem, which does massive damage. Now you'd say, Pony, Bone Storm, that sounds fantastic. We should definitely go for Bone Storm. And I would agree if we go for a certain endgame pit build, but this is not an endgame pit build. This is the level build to fly you to 100. And that's where we're actually going to take Army of the Dead with Prime Army of the Dead and Supreme Army of the Dead. Where I'm going to argue that Supreme Army of the Dead might not be needed to re-raise your minions, but during leveling it can come in handy. Here we do want to push the Critical Strike. It still says attack speed, but we know this is going to be Critical Strike, and you're going to put all the points in here because more Critical Strike for you does actually boost your Sever and currently your Corpse Explosion because we didn't make it a Shadow Corpse Explosion yet. But that Critical Strike is also 100% going over to your minions. And by the way, the Death Defense node will never be needed again. Since armor drastically changed how it works, and minions are getting 100% of your armor, so 100% of your damage reduction already, physical damage reduction, you don't need Death Defense. Oh, and they're getting 100% of your resistance to all elements, so why would you boost that even higher? No sense, not needed. But what is needed is Hellbent Commander, because it does work, finally. And since we're not looking to stack up Shadow Blight, we're rather going to be going for Callan's Addict for that bonus attack speed. Now we do have 24 points left. This is the necessary shebang in this level path to essentially have you work the most efficient. Now we could go for a Shadow Corpse Explosion, but it doesn't really make that much sense because we do have Sever going on, and Sever is Critical Strike reliant. And if we're pushing Critical Strike at this point, Corpse Explosion going for Shadow can Critical Strike, and we're actually not looking to have the Shadow Blight in use during leveling at all. That means I'd rather enhance the Corpse Explosion, and also give it the damage multipliers for Vulnerable, Slowed, and Stunned, which all is being done by our Plague Corpse Tendrils end of the day. Put the next 5 points in Sever for the maximum Sever damage. Get our movement speed up that we can zoom around faster. Even more movement speed from the Reaper's Pursuit. Whenever we hit with a Darkness skill, we essentially get that movement speed, and we'll continuously Sever. For Gloom bonus damage, Terror bonus damage. We're not actually going to be playing Crippling Darkness because we're not really looking to lucky hit much with shadow damage over time. And you can rather invest these points into a huge amount of Corpse Explosion and, well, even more damage reduction from close and more damage to close. As with Sever, you can actually going close to do more damage. Alternatively to that, we can yoink these points out to then put 1 point in unliving energy and have, with imperfectly balanced, your Sever do even more damage. Now, no Blood Mist, because Blood Mist until level 70, 80, 90, even until level 100, you don't need. But for the pit later, Blood Mist will come in handy. For Uber Lilith, Blood Mist will come in handy, but this is the level build to get you there. The good part is this level build later, from an equipment and Paragon point standpoint, easily translate into all the absolute endgame monsters. And your fighting style is going to be very simple. Your minions are running ahead to actually do damage because that's what they do now. They make corpses for corpse explosion and tendrils. You can then nuke in with your Sever. Your Golem can either create bonus corpses and taunt your opponents or do a slam to stun, and then Army of the Dead for an insane damage boost. And we have Skeletal Mages for the Essence, which works fantastic. For the Skeletal Warriors, we can either go for Skirmishers that do a 50x multiplicative critical strike bonus damage hitter whenever I critical strike, which I do consistently, or we can go for the Reapers to just make more corpses. Then for the Golem, you can have him taunt and actually throw out 5 corpses straight away, so you can send him in, corpses, tendrils, explosion, sever, win. Works extremely good versus bosses. Alternatively, you can absorb some of your damage. So if you feel like during a boss, Elias fight, for example, or even in the first capstone dungeon that you're struggling a bit, boom, throw in the Blood Golem, have him absorb some damage. And if you do need a bit more damage, you can actually put him into the Iron Golem to just have him slam down every second attack for a huge damage boost. Mostly go for the Bone Golem because it's too much fun to send him in, corpses, pull, boom. Now, what did change so much about armor? It says I have 12,000 and reduces physical damage taken from enemies of equal level by 85%. That's gone. Now, after having 9,200 armor, that is the armor cap for everything. 9,232. I'll never need more. 200 monsters, 100 monsters, level 200 pit, nothing matters. 9,200 armor, done. That equal level doesn't exist anymore. 85%, you're done with armor, and you can focus on damage. So for me right now, with a total armor percentage here, and a total armor percentage here, and a total armor percentage here, I don't need that anymore. And that goes for temperings as well, because usually on my chest, I would go for total armor tempering. That's wasted. I was going on the amulet for total armor tempering, and I was looking for stats for the armor stat. And since I only have 3 stats here, wasting 1 on armor can feel quite stupid. Now getting 9,200 is quite easy. I mean, I'll just go for Juggernaut aspect on my chest armor. I'll get 5,000 armor plus. Boom, we're done. That's it. What for aspects now, though? That would be first the Occult, because it gives Skeletal Warriors and Mages now at the same time. And yes, as soon as you yoink that once of an item, it's forever in the Codex of Powers. You can enchant it the whole season long. And since we don't need defensive aspects anymore, the cool thing is that we can now yoink utility aspects like crazy on our items. And there is the new Blood Getters, where your Skeletal Priest now heals you. But not only does it heal you, it gives you bonus damage multiplier as well, that your Severs are just slapping in even harder. Next up should be boosting your minion damage though. And for this, we have multiple choices. We get the Frenzied aspect for bonus attack speed up to 42%. I wouldn't put this on my amulet, because if you put it on the amulet, it's too much. You get 42% attack speed, and the Cult Leader node for the bonus damage multiplier on minions is limited to 100% bonus. And here you have to keep in mind that since minions are getting all your stats, if I have an item that gives me 25% attack speed, my minions get 25 or 10% attack speed, and there's even an attack speed temper for minions as well to boost that even higher. So getting the attack speed to 100% will be super easy. Rather on the amulet, I would put something like the aspect of Reanimation, where your minions gain increased damage while alive up to 40% after 10 seconds. That is a permanent 60% damage boost. That's it, all the time, 60% damage multiplier. Done, no questions asked. Don't have to change a single thing. Now, alternative to having Reanimation on the amulet, you could wield a 2-handed weapon for Frenzied Dead, then on the amulet, and Reanimation for the double trouble super damage bonus to actually deal out even more. What I like to have though is Unyielding Commander 2. It gives you a 100% damage boost and a 90% damage reduction to your minions, making them absolutely monsters. That can be held on a 2-handed weapon as well. And then Frenzied Dead can, for example, go for your gloves. That's a little bit, you have mostly a 2-handed weapon while leveling, and that's where then Unyielding Commander goes on, and Frenzied Dead would go on your gloves. But assuming the fact that you do have a good 1-handed weapon and then the Unyielding Commander on your offhand for the bonus cooldown reduction, because offense can have the implicit stat cooldown reduction, that's a 7.5%. then you can have cooldown reduction on the gear itself, and that is quite amazing. If you then pour together another cooldown reduction on your helmet, we're already looking to essentially have your Army of the Dead instead of 70 seconds down to 50 or 40 seconds in the long run. I mean, pair this together with, oh, what? Cooldown reduction on your amulet. You can get up to 75% cooldown reduction on your items currently. Now, in the long run with minions, you always want to play the Ring of Mendeln because that one triggers now on every 6th attack. But since you don't have that during leveling, we're not even going to look at it. Is there any minion aspect otherwise you want to have? There's Needle Flare, and that's kind of stupid with Thorns. There's Requiem, where you get more essence per active minion. It's not terrible because you have a net total of more essence, but it's also not really needed. And that's kind of it. There is something called the Aphotic aspect, where Skeletal Priests empower your warriors' attacks to deal shadow damage and have a 20% chance to stun enemies for 1.5 seconds. I did try this out, and it doesn't actually really deal much damage. It ain't worth it. Now, I'm not saying there's no build where this couldn't work, but it's rather an ultra min-maxing in the late game than in any way leveling. What we'd rather look at is an accelerating aspect. Critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 25%. That attack speed increase on you goes on your minions as well. Boom. And well, more attack speed, more severs, more fun. Now, we're not going to be playing any kind of blighted or anything to boost our Shadow Blight key passive damage, as we're not even playing the Shadow Blight key passive, and we don't need that total damage increase in any way as we're leveling anyways, because your minions are already doing incredible damage as you're boosting theirs, and you're just critting into them. What you can do is you can take Grasping Veins. That would increase your critical strike chance, the minion's critical strike chance, the minion's critical strike damage, and your critical strike damage. That's where Grasping Veins works really well. On the PDR, it didn't work 100% together with your minions. Still does boost your damage and your corpse explosion damage, so I wouldn't neglect that. And honestly, just simply because you have the slots, Coldbringer's Aspect. Coldbringer's Aspect now scales with your weapon. So that is an interesting one, since again, if you have a two-handed weapon, Coldbringer's Aspect would do more damage as your minions are just blizzarding away for the leveling purpose. Again, this is a build to just zoom you to level 100, and then we're going for an endgame build. And that's where Frenzied Dead can be on your gloves, or Frenzied Dead can be on your ring, however you feel about it. Unyielding Commander is then on the two-hand, and Coldbringer's Aspect is on your pants. And for the boots, you could choose whatever you like. We can go for Metamorphosis to become unstoppable as we're dashing, to be able to essentially get out of any kind of trouble, as we might be getting stunned, frozen, blah, whatsoever. Dash, unstoppable, safety, perfection. You can't be stopped. And then lastly, your final item is completely up to you. You could take something to restore essence like Exposed Flesh, which will be in the Codex of Powers, that you're then severing in and you get your essence back. But at the same time, do think about the Requiem aspect, because it does give you, for every active minion, you have 11 active minions, more maximum essence, right? That gives you another 50 essence more. Every sever costs currently 20 essence. Now, your minions are making 3 essence per attack with an insane attack speed boost, so they're over-essensing you. And that's the thing, you're going to start casting instead of with 100 essence with 150 essence, and then your minions are going to fill that up again, so you can do more attacks in total. It is not even that bad for leveling. And definitely the first choice, though, to go out if you pick up a Ring of Mendeln or the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls, because these are the 2 rings that you would ultimately want, since they re-raise your skeletons, they do your corpse explosions for you, they do your tendrils for you. So if you can get rid of the Requiem aspect and, well, move the Grasping Veins then over to the accelerating part, because the accelerating part is only needed until you have enough attack speed for your minions to essentially be at that 100% cap. Then you don't need it anymore, and you're good off rather with those 2 amazing rings. Your jewelry is still getting diamonds, your armor is having rubies, and your weapons are going for critical strike damage with the sapphires. Now, we will have to look how the new jewelry exactly looks as season 4 starts, because there was talk about maybe boosting your intelligence a bit or some of the other stats with the jewelry, but it seems like they didn't change too much on them. Now, for the Paragon board, I would like to blow your mind. Let's do the first one and then talk about Wither for a second, which may make the absolute super broken Necromancer board in the future. Right now, we have to look that we really take all resistance to all elements that are absolutely available, because getting more resistance is harder. They did buff the amount that amulets and rings now give resistance, yet it might still be a little bit of a struggle to hit that 75, 75, 75, unless you're taking resistance to all elements as a stat on your pants. Because yes, your pants can have this, and then you should be good off as you masterwork that. By the way, before we continue with the Paragon board, I kind of forget about the tempering. And here we're looking mostly at minion skeletal mage damage or skeletal mage cast twice. If you get skeletal mage cast twice, that is twice the amount of essence to always be fully essenced up. Again, to reach the 100% cap, you could go for minion attack speed and then retemper that into something different. And for the other offensive items, you do have Corpse Explosion, which is quite cool because we can actually then temper Corpse Explosion as well. And there is one very nasty one, and that is Sever Projectiles Cast Twice. Some to consider. For defensive items, you can be looking for maximum life because we don't need total armor anymore, since you should be at the 9,200 cap anyways. And I do highly recommend Corpse Tendril Size because Corpse Tendril Size pulls together the whole screen. They nerfed this a little bit, but still your Corpse Tendrils can reach a size that gets everyone in your visibility together, and you'll never have to run around rooms catching people. Open rooms are not a problem for Necros anymore. On your amulet and rings, you might want to look for potential resource cost reduction because resource cost reduction allows you to sever more. If you have 2 of those temperings going on, you might bring your severs down to 15 or even 10 resource in the long run to then be infinitely spamming them out, because if they cost 10, your minions are restoring essence faster than you can actually spend it. Which, by the way, if you have resource generation, has your dudes give you even more essence per attack. So if I get 50% resource generation bonus and they give me 3 essence per hit, it's going to be potentially 5 essence per hit instead. Now for the first Paragon board, I would focus here, intelligence, 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 intelligence. Why that? Because we're playing Exhumation. And Exhumation is simple, more Corpse Explosion damage, and our Corpse Explosion is still physical damage, and it fortifies us. Fortify now gives you even more damage reduction, 15 instead of 10%, plus the 4% from here is already 19% damage reduction from Fortify alone. Which brings us then into the Flesh Eater board that is on corpse consumption for summoning skeletons or boosting skeletons, or just your corpse explosions for another 40% multiplier. And technically you would take this attack speed node here to boost the attack speed of your minions. Realistic, we do probably have to go down here this way to actually take the poison resistance and the bonus armor that we are then at the poison resistance cap. And since our Corpse Explosion and Sever Critical Strike and our minions, we can focus on the critical strike damage here with a 40% multiplier. Then we're activating our beautiful damage to elites and all the resistance. And this glyph is a little bit iffy and whiffy, but technically you do want the corporal glyph because that would give you another 10% movement speed and boost your minions' physical damage. That physical damage boost would though only work on your skeletal warriors, not your mages, because they're going to be either cold or shadow, potentially bone. This one does actually make you faster zooming, and well, it gives you more elemental resistance and it gives you more damage to elites. Alternative, you could go for Amplify, but for Amplify we have to sacrifice the golem to then use our curse skill, which is something to do in the end game. But again, this is just for leveling, and for leveling I just want to actually run faster around, right? This is not how to make the most damage. This is how I can level the fastest to 100, and that's where the movement speed is more beneficial than a bit more damage. This brings us now into the cult leaderboard and afterwards the wither, and then we'll talk about the wither. In the cult leaderboard, we do go for damage reduction on our minions, and we still go for Debt Raiser, because Debt Raiser raises their damage and gives us a damage multiplier again, which then goes as well for the minion damage here boosted, and you actually activate the whole glyph for minion attack speed, damage, damage, attack speed. You don't actually have to take these 2 minion damages because it's a minimal plus bonus that is actually not that much and can be ignored. Now, interestingly enough, you don't need the resistance to all elements or the skeletal warrior armor. Yes, there is a wee bit of damage to be had here, but that damage you could rather get over more glyph multipliers than a little bit over these nodes. End of the day, it is only 4 points to be spent. 5, sorry, where this is a bit more. So I tend to still take the skeletal mage damage here, as it is a 50% bonus when you meet the requirements. But again, the more resistance is not needed. And especially back here, the total armor bonus and the minion life bonus, completely useless. Your minions survive the 200 pit anyways. That brings us then upwards, finally, into the wither board. And did you know that Wither actually does bonus damage on more intelligence? And right now, my character has 800 intelligence and has an 18% chance for 102% bonus damage on my shadow damage over time. This is not good for the current build, but just think about it for a second. I have 800 intelligence, and my gloves have currently 53 intelligence on the gear, but new gloves have 150 intelligence. You can get 150 intelligence on your chest, on your helmet, on your amulet, rings, offhand, main hand, shoes, pants. I can get at least 150 int per item. There's a realistic chance for 2000 plus int builds, which then suddenly brings us to a 40% bonus, which brings our damage over time to a 40% chance and our bonus damage to 200+%. That means millions of damage ticks on our corpse explosion, and they can tick for 5 to 10 million. And that has a 40% chance to do 200% more damage suddenly. Pardon me, but that sounds very good. Now, we don't actually need the Wither board for this build because it doesn't do much. What we'd rather do is we're going through Send of first, because Send of Death has for us boop, 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 critical strike, critical strike, critical strike, boosting all our critical strike damage, more damage reduction or damage multiplier with even more critical strike damage. And yet here I have another 66 points left. And here we could now boost our darkness damage and reduce the damage that enemies deal to us. But to be fair, that is not a damage multiplier. I would rather potentially think back about control for more damage against crowd control targets, because with the freeze damage of your minions and all the things you're doing yourself, you are completely having minions staggered, bosses staggered, like there's no tomorrow. And it's just simply so easy to activate. I mean, instead of going on this side, we could even just go in on this side and save us these 2 points, taking out 2 more, and then boop, suddenly have all the damage versus crowd control going on. Brings me to leaving this on the bottom into the Bone Graft board. Bone Graft board is a funny one because technically it doesn't do much for us, but practically it can give us something amazing, and that is essence on kill and maximum essence. So if we kill something, we do get essence back to then spam even more severs. Not only does it give us the cool essence, no, we can go for the essence glyph, which hires my critical strike damage on the sever and the critical strike damage my minions do, and give us a 22% multiplier on our critical strikes again. And that one can be pushed up to 35 easy. Technically, you could be taking these 2 down there, but 35 points is more than enough. And lastly, with 19 points left over, there could be a world where I make it into a bloodbath board to tap into one final glyph. For example, exploit. Now, this is going to be a bit tricky because you got to turn the board that you essentially instantly take all the dexterity nodes. Because if we wanted to have exploit here for more vulnerable damage and more vulnerable damage multiplier, we need 25 dex. But I do only have 11 points left. So can we get there? It is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I would need 2 more, right? So that would be 11, 12, 13, 14, or 11, 12, 13, 14, where this actually gives us more damage while fortified. So that's 11. I'm technically out of points. 13, 14. So now I need 3 more points from anywhere to boost this further. And the easiest points to take would be resistance to all elements, probably. Resistance to all elements down here, because you're most likely going to have more at this stage, hopefully. And lastly, you could take out some damage reduction to your minions, because they should have enough damage reduction. And suddenly we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 glyphs activated and are an absolute monstrosity. That link with everything is going to land in the description below, but do tell me, what are you looking forward to? You want to play that Shadow Summoner? You're rather going to go for full Golemancer? Or do you even want to look at Bone Spear completely? Yes, there is a Bone Spear Necro and it's going to be fun, but Bone Spear Summoner is simply going to be better. Lastly, you could play Bone Spirit as well. Many options are there for you. This, I would argue, is probably the fastest way to 100. I did actually test it. You can see my live stream up there where I did fly all the way to 100. And here's actually the video that explains the mythology in Season 4. Enjoy both of them. And thank you for watching so far. Any questions in the comments below.